It is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Dr. Sammy Noumbissi, DDS, MS, all the way from Silver Springs, Maryland, which is a suburb of Washington, D.C. He obtained his doctorate in dental surgery from Howard University in Washington, D.C. I don't know if you know that, but that school was named after me 95 years before I was born. How cool is that, that they started that Howard University in 1867 and I wouldn't be born for 95 more years. He was then selected to attend the prestigious Loma Linda University graduate program in implant dentistry. There he received 3 years of formal training in dental implantology, which culminated with a certificate in implant dentistry and a master's science degree in implant surgery. He is a researcher, author, and has published abstracts and articles on ceramic implants in peer-reviewed dental journals. He lectures nationally and internationally and is a current and founding president of the International Academy of Ceramic Implantology, which is an independent association and education provider exclusively focused on metal-free and ceramic implantology. Dr. Noumbissi has been practicing and educating dentists on metal-free implantology since 2009. His practice and the academy are both located in Silver Spring, Maryland University. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Howard. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's an honor. So, gosh, the first implant was placed by Brandmark. I wonder what year that was. Do you know what year that was? Can you Google that? What year did Dr. Brandmark place the first implant? And they pretty much all been titanium. So do you see ceramic implants as the next big thing in implantology?
Yes, I do, and for many reasons. Like you said, the grandfather of implants was Brandmark. From when he started, I think it was in the mid-50s, I can't remember, until today, titanium implants remain the dominant form of tooth replacement in implantology. However, over time now, we've been finding that technology has evolved, and we're finding that not all patients and not all titanium alloys are created equal, and therefore we start to face challenges, and we also start to face the public asking for better materials to be inserted in their body.
I just Googled it. Leonard Linkow in the 1950s was one of the first to insert titanium and other metal implants into the bones of the jaw. Artificial teeth were then attached to these pieces of metal. In 1965, Brandmark placed his first titanium implant to a human volunteer. So I wonder when the first ceramic implant was done.
Well, if you go back in the history of ceramic implants, we have the equivalent of Brandmark and Linkow with ceramic implant, which is Sammy Sandhaus out of Switzerland. And Sammy Sandhaus started looking into ceramic implants, modern ceramic implants, I should say, in the 70s. He even had a brand at the time, his own system, which was made of an early type of ceramic. And since then, it's evolved. So ceramic implants are not new. Totally just came up recently. They've been around. There's been people studying them and placing them in the background. And I want to say in the last 15, 20 years, we have really seen now a resurgence and a development and advancement of ceramic materials for implantation.
They say these ceramic are metal free, but they're made out of zirconium, and it technically isn't zirconia metal?
Okay, that's a very, very good question, Howard, because I get that all the time, and it's always brought up. Now, when you look at ceramic implants today, they're most made of 3 ceramics in majority: zirconia, alumina, and yttria. Now, your question was about the zirconia part. There's one thing where people have to be very careful. Zirconia and zirconium are 2 different things. Zirconium, you're right, it's the metal. If you look on the table of elements, you see that zirconium is right around there with titanium and other metals. However, zirconium is one of those metals, like aluminum and yttrium, that are called transitional metals. So these are metals that, under certain type of treatment and processing, can transition into a crystal phase and therefore become ceramics. So zirconium alone is a metal, but now when you do an oxidation of the zirconium, you have zirconium oxide, which is called zirconia. You have aluminum oxide, which is called alumina. And the same thing for yttrium, which is yttrium oxide and becomes yttria. So the idea that the ceramic implants, the zirconia implants, are another type of metal implant It's a misperception. It's actually a ceramic which has the properties of all ceramics and devoid, completely transformed from a metal into a crystal.
That is profound and very interesting. So, why do you think there's a market for ceramic implants? Is it cosmetic? Is it allergies to metal? What do you think's the driving force?
I think the driving force at the moment is, believe it or not, the public. It's the patients. If you look around, there's a lot of health food markets, there's a lot of organic, there's a lot of wellness, there's a lot of well-being. So the mindset of our patients, the public, those we serve, has evolved. So you find that patients are going out now requesting alternative therapies or requesting less invasive therapies. Now, on the other side, on our side as professionals, those of us who have done a lot of implants for a long time have witnessed that some patients do not tolerate well those implants. They have sensitivities to those implants or allergies. We're also finding out now, it's being pretty much documented better and better, that a lot of issues with peri-implantitis has to do with titanium breaking down in the bone and causing inflammation. So, and of course, as you mentioned, there's also the aesthetic factor. I mean, white implants, you don't have graying of soft tissue and things like that. So it's multidimensional. The aesthetics, the health demands of the public, and the awareness now in our profession that there's a potential, there are problems in some individuals, not all, with tolerating a metal implanted in the bone for long periods of time.
Gordon Christian said that, and a lot of people thought he was crazy that there was metal allergies to titanium, because the knee-jerk reaction is that no, it's not. It's completely tolerable. But you agree with Gordon that some people have sensitivities to titanium?
Absolutely. Gordon Christensen is absolutely right. And I would go further and say that today, with what we know and what's documented in the literature, that titanium is biotolerated. Okay? Titanium is biotolerated compared to zirconia and what we know about zirconia at this point. Now, so, it's worked well. It served orthopedics and dentistry and implantology very well. But now we know more. We are able to find out more what it can do or what it can induce or potentially cause for any given patient. And we have to pay attention to that.
Zimmer is really the largest implant company really in the world. Because they do hips and knees and spine disc and everything. And they just put their dental implant division up for sale this week. I wonder, why do you think they're getting out of the dental implant?
Well, if you look at Zimmer right now, they've always been titanium, okay? And I think the titanium, I'm not an expert in the business, but being a keen observer of how implantology has evolved in the last 20 years, we have a plethora now of implant companies. Okay, so we in the United States, I think the last number I saw was 150 or 130 FDA-approved titanium implants in the United States. So I think the market is crowded, and now we can find pretty functional, good implants for $80, $90 on the market. And if you look at a Zimmer implant, it's a very good implant. I used a lot of Zimmers for many years. They cost above $300. And then you have the clones, and so I think what has happened is, for them, and that's my opinion, the market has gotten crowded. It was always a little thing on the side for Zimmer. They're huge in urology and orthopedics and all that. So I think that it's just probably a business move as far as they're concerned.
So what percent of the market today in 2018 is of the implants is ceramic? And where do you see it in 10 years?
Today we're looking at less than 1%. It's a still very niche market. As you're probably aware, the International Academy of Ceramic Implantology, we are also a very small organization. We exist for about 7 years, and the numbers are growing. That's fine. You find that the big players are getting into ceramic implants, like Nobel and Camlog, and so Strawman, of course. So that's a good thing. But now it's still a very niche product. It's gradually moving out of the holistic dentist niche into going slightly mainstream. Now, you ask me, where do I see 10 years from now? I don't think ceramics implants will come around and completely wipe off titanium implants or completely replace them. I just think that they're going to have their fair share on the market. The problem now we have with ceramic implants is the cost. They can be very expensive, especially based on which technology is used to make them. So 10 years from now, I'll stick my neck out. I'll say maybe it could be somewhere around 15-20% of the implant market.
Wow. So your website is IAOCI, the International Academy of Ceramic Implantology. IAOCI, International Academy of Ceramic Implantology. I know what my homies are thinking. The first thing they're thinking is, well, which ceramic implant do you prefer?
Okay. Ceramic implants, I'm going to be a little long in my answer, but I'll try to be very succinct anyway. Ceramic implants are made in two ways. They can be made either by milling or they can be made by injection molding. Okay? Now, the milling technology is expensive because you have to have drills and milling machines to grind blocks of zirconia. Whereas injection molding, you can make a lot of implants in one shot. Now, and they come in two forms. Okay, they come in one-piece implants and in two-piece implants. Now, the challenges that have come about on both ends. A one-piece implant is very challenging, not only to place, but also to restore, because once you place the implant, you have the abutment connected to the implant, and you have to send the patient out and trust that they will not disturb that implant prematurely. So that's a big challenge. And then if you have angles or difficult areas, sometimes a straight implant, one piece, is not the most appropriate implant to place. Then you go to the two-piece implants, which are similar to what we know with titanium implants, but the challenge they have right now is to find a screw that's not metal. So, for example, Strawman has come out with their two-piece in Europe, not in the US yet, and it has a metal screw, which a lot of purists, either on the patient or the doctor end, don't like the idea of having a metal screw within ceramics. And if you look at the biomechanics of the two materials, they're not very compatible, so there's issues there. So there's only one implant right now on the market that has a carbon fiber screw and has enjoyed a lot of success because of that. But then again, the downside of that is that the screw has to be of a certain size and it takes a lot of restorative space. So to answer your question, Howard, very squarely, what's my favorite ceramic implant or which one do I favor? Not really any, because they all designed a little differently and they tend to be better applicable in certain situations versus others. What do I use the most? I like two-piece because, again, it reminds me of the flexibility I had with titaniums. You know, one piece are very good in premolar areas and things like that, where things are a little more straight, where there's less stress, there's less chances of stress, premature stress on the implant. So yes, it's very difficult to give you a square answer on that.
You know, one of the biggest problems that these kids have is, you know, they come out of dental school, you know, $250,000, $350,000 in debt, and they've never placed a single implant. I mean, it's so hard to go from 0 to 1. What would you tell some lady who's 25 years old, she's commuting to work right now, and she's never placed a single implant? Guide her on her journey. How should she start?
I think, like you're right, they come up with a lot of debt and very few can afford to go to residencies like I did for 3 years and just learn implants. So
how did you swing that?
Well, at the time, it wasn't as expensive as it is today. Oh, okay. That was about 15 years ago.
True.
But it was tough. It was tough. I had to, you know, like everybody, I'll be honest, it was challenging. Financially, it was. But then there was a passion in me to go and pursue that. Now, mentoring a young dentist coming out of dental school, 25 years old, $350,000, $400,000 in debt, I said, start by finding a mentor. Start by hanging around a guy who is open-minded, who is willing to share, who can walk you through it. I even say that this is something I really, really advocate. Start restoring implants before you place implants, okay? Because in implantology, the difference between the men and the boys, I'm not being sexist, but between is prosthetics. You can place implants all day long. If you can't use them for prosthetics, you're not going anywhere with it. So I tell young people or beginners, find a mentor, try to restore them. Because when you restore them, you'll see the problems that can come from poor placement or poor planning. Then go into single cases, simple single cases and simple doesn't mean an anterior, because a lot of people think a simple implant case is a number 8 or a number 9. That's not true. It's probably a premolar in a maxilla. That's the area of the mouth where things are very straight. You're less likely to hit a nerve or perforate the sinus and things like that. And then immediate placement is not a simple case either. A lot of people think, oh, the hole is there, I can just stuff the implant in there. No. So also what they have at their disposal, which I didn't have just 15, 20 years ago, it's a lot of tools. There's cone beam CTs, there's 3D planning, there's services that can help you plan. I didn't have that, and I'm not in the business that very long. So find a mentor, start restoring them first, do simple cases, and slowly grow. Also educate yourself, be open-minded. Read. You have to read. You have to look at articles. You have to go to courses. All these things come gradually and slowly. So that's my advice.
What percent? I agree. Finding a mentor is just everything, and that's why I love doing this podcast. So they can, using the smartphone to carry your voices while she's on the treadmill. What percent of oral surgeons and periodontists do you think are open-minded and think in hope, growth, and abundancy versus living in fear and scarcity? And she knocks on his door and he's thinking, I want you to send your implants to me. I don't want to teach you how to do this. This is my business. What percent of oral surgeons and periodontists do you think in abundance?
I can't give you a number, but it's probably very, very low. But what I can say is this. When I came out, after my 3 arduous years of learning implantology, I had the same reflex. You tend to protect what you earned, your hard-earned knowledge. But you know what I found out very quickly? The more you educate people on a certain aspect of things, the more they understand their limitations. And the more they understand what they're willing to do or able to do. So I found that, my referrals went up when I explained and showed the process. And some of these people will sit and say, Dr. Sammy, I think I'm going to let you do that. And once you educate these people to see what you see or how you see it, they see more. They might keep a few in the office, the singles and whatnot, but they'll now learn how to identify the cases that fit what you need as a specialist or the expert. So the percentage, I don't really know a number. It's probably below 5%. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And the orthodontists have the same problem. They're so scared of general dentists doing Invisalign. And what is Invisalign doing now? They're bypassing the orthodontist. They bought a controlling interest in a Smiles Direct Club, and now they're going straight to the consumer in malls. And here the orthodontist thought the general dentist was the bad guy. And every orthodontist that I've seen in the last 10 years who knew general dentists were going to do Invisalign and got behind it and started putting up study clubs in their office, say, hey, dude, if you're going to do this Invisalign, I want to make sure you're doing it right. Their practices exploded because the general dentist might start doing some Invisalign. What I've seen with orthodontics is general dentists think it's a great idea, and they don't realize an orthodontist is flipping a chair every 15 minutes, and they're scheduling an hour for an ortho check or 30 minutes. And they all get into it, and then most of them get out of it. And then who do they leave all their business to? That orthodontist who had a relationship and thought in abundance. And same thing I've seen over and over. The endodontist who let you come in and sit down and watch them do a root canal, they always have the biggest practices. Living in fear is just not an option.
No.
I remember this metal allergy. I've seen this rodeo before 30 years ago. I mean, back when, by the way, when I got out of dental school, a PFM was the cosmetic everything. I mean, that was cosmetic dentistry. But you saw it in like Irish, Welsh, Scottish, kind of northern Scandinavian, that some people would get a tattoo from the amalgam. And Gordon thought it was because people like me were a little more acidic and were leaching the metals out and from the PFM into the tissue. And we know people are different. Like I'm Irish, and Irish have the highest percent of celiac sprue. In fact, if you ever go to Ireland, every single grocery store has a celiac-free section because in the United States, it's a very rare disease, celiac sprue, but in Ireland, it's very common. So I could totally see that some people would have a metal allergy. Do you think Irish people are more susceptible to titanium? Or have you seen any demographic, man, woman, menopause, anything that more closely associated with metal allergy than not?
It's very interesting the points that you made. You said a couple of very pertinent things. For example, there's been some studies out there that there's potentially genetic markers to people more likely to have implant failures than others. It's not well studied yet, but there's a couple papers I've seen around suggesting that genetically some people might be predisposed not to be very receptive to implants. Now, talking about getting what Dr. Gordon Christensen told you about being acidic, well, acidity rhymes with being inflammatory, in an inflammation state. So when you have that PFM or you have that implant, well, if you're acidic or if you are you have a certain amount of inflammation around that implant, well, you induce corrosion attack to that implant because of acidity, and then that implant releases more metal ions in the peri-implant area, and then you have the macrophages that come in, the TNF alpha, and you have more inflammation, then you have osteolysis, you have peri-implantitis, and then you have implant loss. So I cannot prove it, but one thing is for sure, and that would be a great study to verify, to see where people who live, for example, in areas where there's enough sunlight, where they spend a lot of time outside and wear light shirts like yours instead of a suit and jacket like me, if they have a higher success rate. And what am I going there? Which direction am I going with this? We now know. Well, now no, it's been known, but we now accept more openly that a deficient vitamin D person like me who lives in Silver Spring and not in Florida or Arizona, and a high cholesterol patient, or somebody who has been taking antidepressants for a long time, like serotonin uptake inhibitors and things like that, they tend to have a higher failure rate. So again, these are things that are not that have not been deeply investigated or looked into. But I would agree with you that there's a very strong chance that there's certain people or certain demographics that are not just going to do well with certain materials.
That is that is very profound. Another thing that I see kind of bizarre. Let's face it, people who need all on four, they usually weren't a vegan yoga instructor who rode her bicycle to work every day. I mean, these are in Phoenix. These are people who drank a lot, smoked a lot, didn't brush their teeth a lot, were more likely to have Mountain Dew than bottled water. And then they've lost everything, sometimes even from meth. And then some dentists will put this all on four. But it didn't change the behavior. You still got your Uncle Eddie in a trailer park in Apache Junction, and his behaviors have changed. And they're charging $25,000 an arch, which combined is $50,000. In fact, Ryan, I'd love to find out what is the top-selling $50,000 car in America. And then I see, and then they come into my office, and they got an entire ham sandwich underneath these implants, and we see that at 5 years, 20% have peri-implantitis. That may be at 9 years, up to 40 to 60% have peri-implantitis. In a decade, a lot of these cases are falling out. But then you see for these implants with the like the Zest anchorage attachment, the ball and socket. Where when that denture is placed in there, it snaps into place, but then he can pop that out and rinse it off and clean it, and it's half the price. I think so many of these all-on-4s for $25,000 an arch, all-on-4 fixed, should have been all-on-4 removable, and it would have been half the price. I mean, you could do all-on-4 upper and lower for $25,000, where all-on-4 upper and lower is $50,000. What are your thoughts on that rant?
Well, you've touched up on a lot of things. For example, you said the guy who purchases these fixed all-on-4s, all this work is done without changing his or her behavior. But not only that, all of this is also done without checking his chemistry, his blood work, and all kinds of other things. I think when you look at the old implant papers or the old implant reports, it used to be done in hospitals. Patients had blood work before the implants was placed. Our colleagues in orthopedics do that. They don't go and do a knee replacement without knowing what's the systemic status of the patients. We in implant dentistry, we just place a lot of implants, and by and large, they're very successful. However, the more people get implants, because before it used to be a very, if I may say, restricted elite group of people who could afford them. But now implants have become affordable. I mean, you're talking about these fixed arches on 4. I've seen places that do them for somewhere around under $20,000. So you're finding that more people can afford it and more people are getting it. But once you broaden the pool of people who are receiving all these implants, now you're going down into people that have other issues. They can afford it, but they have health problems that are not solved. They probably have they're on antidepressants. They're low on vitamin D. They're high on cholesterol and low on vitamin C. All these things that affect bone healing. Okay, so but most of us just go out there and do it well, and most of the time get a good result. Now, talking about the cleanliness of materials, it's also proven that zirconia, compared to any type of metal, tends to stay a lot cleaner in the mouth. Zirconia accumulates very little plaque, and if you have little plaque anywhere, you tend to have less bacteria. If you have less bacteria, there's less bacteria byproducts, therefore less inflammation. Okay, so again, we circle back to the material. Titanium has done well for us. But what we need to understand is that the materials evolve. Now we're having such things as flexible concrete. Well, ceramics today can bend a little bit, not as much as titanium yet, but they are getting better at enduring certain types of stress. So this myth about they're all going to fracture all the time, fracture is a big... No, it's no longer true as it was in 1971 when Sandhouse started, or in the 80s. It's much better, you see. So I think we are at a crossroads today. You know, it's a now, then it's a yesterday or now dentistry. Everybody wants everything now, but we also have to, as professionals, realize that we have new materials. They're always going to evolve. They're going to get better, and that we should always keep our minds open as to what is in our armamentarium to treat our patients.
You know, you should call that implant what you're talking about, that it started out with an elite, more expensive group of people. Now it's gone mainstream. It's going to be different. You should call that the Southwest Airlines effect, because when I started lecturing in 1990, only rich people flew on airplanes, and it was like Pan Am and Eastern and Braniff and TWA, and men were almost always in suits. I remember a connecting flight in Atlanta on Eastern Airlines, and they didn't let one of the guys board the plane because he basically looked tennis shoes and sweats. But now that Southwest Airlines made it so low cost that everyone has the freedom to afford to fly, so that's you should call that the Southwest Airlines effect on dental implants. Who do you keep referring to on these ceramic implants? What is his name?
What I would arguably call the grandfather of ceramic implants is Sammy Sandhouse. Sami Sandhouse.
Can you find that?
Yes,
Sammy.
Sammy like me.
Okay.
Sami. I'm sorry.
Sami.
Yeah.
And how do you...
Sandhouse.
Sandhouse.
Sandhaus.
Haus.
Yes, Sandhouse. Like in German.
Oh yeah. So okay.
Yeah, he's in his 90s and still practicing and doing surgery in Switzerland.
Is he your
Actually,
buddy?
yes, he was our keynote speaker last year at our congress in Miami, Ceramic Implant Congress, and we gave him a lifetime award. It was so emotional because he lived to see an organization dedicated to that honor him, because he had always been somewhat of a pariah on the side, trying all these ceramic implants, and today you find that it's there's a big change. There's an evolution. I mean, when you look at these big players, Nobel, Straumann, Camlog, now having their lines of ceramic implants, it's good news. It's amazing. They know, they have enough money to know what's coming and to anticipate things. They have teams that are dedicated to that, and when they make that switch, you know that we're going in the right direction.
So that's the guy right there?
That's correct.
So why does he have a PR in front of his name? He's in a practice. Everyone's a DR, and he's a PR.
He's a professor.
Oh,
You see, in Europe,
professor.
yeah, in Europe they're very particular, and they make sure that that's acknowledged. And when you teach in university, you get the PR.
And where does he live and teach? What country?
He's in I think he's in Basel, Switzerland.
Basel, Switzerland. So
Yeah.
how's his English?
Very good.
Well, then tell him to come on the show. That'd be great to have him follow you. Two Sammys back to back.
Yes,
That'd be romantic.
Oh yes, I'll do that.
Yeah, shoot.
I have videos of him too. I'll send some videos to Ryan of him.
Yeah.
That you can look, and then I'll send him an email. I'll do that for you.
Well, Gandhi said it well, that first they laugh at you, and then they go violent on you, and then they accept you. And I keep telling these kids that go easy on these innovators, because when I was in school, University of Missouri, Kansas City, the professors all openly threw the oral surgeon under a bus that was placing implants. I mean, it was ramus frames, it was subperiosteals. They called him the butcher. I mean, can you imagine going to a university where professors are calling other professors the butcher? And then out here and around the United States, a lot of these early pioneers, the first time one of their big cases failed, the board would take their license away. And I know a dentist who was all that in a bag of chips and on top of the world and doing all these subs and ramus frames and really helping a lot of people. They took his license away, and he basically bankrupted, moved into a trailer, and drank himself to death. And it was just so sad. And so, so when dentists are throwing people under a bus, I tell them that, almost all this stuff we have came from these pioneers who were really, really treated unfairly. And now you see it with, it's so funny how actions don't match words. There's so many dentists where if you say alternative medicine or holistic, they just think you're a quackpot. Yet when that dentist finds out he has high blood pressure or high cholesterol, he doesn't go play big pharma with his MD. He changes his diet. He changes his behavior. And I'm like, oh, what are you going all alternative medicine on me? What are you, a holistic quack? And what's amazing is dentists, there's so many Americans who don't believe in big pharma. They don't want to be part of polypharma. And when dentists put holistic or alternative or natural on their website, it's huge marketing.
Yes, it is.
It's just huge marketing, but they feel like they don't want to do it because they don't want to be a whack job, yet they are a whack job whenever it comes to them.
Yes, but you see, it goes back to what we were talking a little earlier at the beginning of our conversation, that the public has changed. Okay, I think that, again, the internet has been the game changer here. There's access to a lot of information, good and bad, but it's there. And so what our patients, our clients do, they go and read certain things, and now your patient in Kansas or in Scottsdale or Phoenix can read the writings of the guy in Australia or in New Zealand. There's no barrier. So now they come to you and say, there's this guy in Australia that does this, or there's this guy in Wisconsin or in Washington State. Can you do this for me? So in the realm of ceramic implants, I see this every day. These patients who are even referred by their dentist to a neurosurgeon or a periodontist to get implants. And they say, I went to this guy, I asked him about ceramic implants. He dismissed it, or she dismissed it. I went back on the internet, did my homework. I found you, and I'm here. And so you find that even dentists refer their patients to their trusted and preferred surgeon, and the patients make up their mind. I mean, I have a couple of endodontists and orthodontist friends who say their self-referrals have increased. So people just walk into the specialist's office and say, I want you to do my root canal. I want you to do my ortho. I want you to do ceramic implants for me. So the public is driving this, and it's going to be that way for a long time. I always tell when I lecture, I tell doctors, I say, look at the number of whole food supermarkets, the numbers of organic this and organic that and wellness this and wellness that. Why are they there? Why are they flourishing? Because there's a change in the consciousness. Yes.
And it goes back to the Southwest Airlines effect because, right now, if you're, 1% of the population is the greatest generation. I think they're 87 to 95. Then there's 9% is the silent generation. They're 68 to 85. Then you got the boomers. They're 24% of the population from right now they're 49 to 68. But those three generations, they would go to the doctor. The doctor would say, you need a knee transplant or a knee implants or a hip, or you need this. And they'd say, well, okay, you're the doctor. But now we got Generation X and millennials and Generation Z, and they don't care that you're a doctor. They're going to do a 15-minute Google search, and Southwest Airlines has made it affordable to fly. And these dentists that are building their cases on their website that says, this is my work. These are cases I did myself. And these guys are in Kansas City and Wichita, and they're having patients jump on Southwest Airlines from 3 states away because their mom would have just gone to the dentist because that's their family dentist. They're in Parsons, Kansas. He's worked on their family for generations. And the millennials are saying, no, I'm not going to let old man Cranston, I don't think he's on top of the game. I've been doing a Google search, and there's a guy in Kansas City, and I'll just drive or fly there because flying is so low cost. And they and plus it doesn't matter if there is a metal allergy or not. If the patient believes it and they're the ones with the cash, that's what they're going to get. I mean, I have people all the time, and I don't even, and the flag words don't even make sense. Like they say, well, is there, is this material natural? And I always say, you mean natural like chlamydia or natural like HIV? Natural like a hurricane or the black hole in the middle of the Milky Way that's eventually going to suck our entire solar system into it and spit it out. But when they're saying natural, when they're saying alternative, when they're they're the customer, and if that's what they want, that's what they're going to get. And if you stand them down and say no, you're crazy, here's all literature, you're safe, we're going to do it my way or the highway, well, they go the highway, and they'll even get on the Southwest Airlines highway and fly away with their money.
No, that's what happens, and I can tell you, even my friends and colleagues in Europe, they tell me how they receive so many U.S. patients in their practices in Europe. And me in Washington, D.C., Silver Spring, Maryland, people fly from Florida, California, a little less these days because there's a few more doctors on those coasts doing ceramic implants. But when I started ceramic implants in 2009, I mean, it was an honor, but it was also difficult because you have these patients coming from all over the country and nobody willing to touch or follow up with them. And they cannot stay in your town 2, 3, 4 weeks for you to follow through. It was difficult. So, it's an honor to have people fly over to your office. That's great, but it's even better to see that with the efforts that we're doing at the IOCI and the cases that we post here and there on social media, on our website, that more doctors are opening to this. That industry is now realizing this is something that the public wants. This is something that's going to make the doctors better. Let's get in and have it available to our customers. And that's how you see the big players offering ceramic implants now.
You know, the periodontists, there's about 5,000 periodontists, 5,000 oral surgeons, there's 12,000 orthodontists. That's the largest specialty. If you cut orthodontists in half, each half would be larger than the second largest oral surgeons. But the periodontists, they voted on changing their name at the last meeting, and it only failed by one vote. They wanted to add dental implants into their name. And but I kind of look at their the periodontists as, at 2018, there doesn't seem to be an agreed definition of peri-implantitis and treatment protocol. I mean, it's kind of like, if you just Googled, well, it's really not black and white yet. What do you think is the protocol? Because peri-implantitis is a really big deal. I mean, I'm reading that at 60 months, 20% implants have peri-implantitis. That at 9 years, depending on the study, 40 to 60% have peri-implantitis. That's why I think all on four is going to cause a lot of problems. I think a lot of these people are paying $50,000 for all on four, and 10 to 15 years later, it's going to be a failed case. But what is your protocol for peri-implantitis? And there's some treatments that involve very expensive lasers that could cost $75,000 to $135,000, like the Millennium. So what are your thoughts on peri-implantitis protocol?
Peri-implantitis, this is the way I look at it. First, we have to start to learn to look at the cause of the problem and not only the symptoms. I think too often we have a symptom approach treatment where there's pus, there's bone loss, we're going to clean and we're going to graft and we're going to give antibiotics and things are going to be better. Now, in the process of doing that, there's other things that I find a little strange, is that to clean an implant, there were protocols when I was in residency and a few years back that you use certain acidic products. There were some products that were you blast the implant with a Profi jet or whatever. Well, when you do that, let's stop and think. What are you doing? You're inserting more particles of a material in the area that's already injured, or you are with acidity inducing a corrosion attack on the very implant that you're trying to treat. So why is the peri-implantitis there? We now know it's because the implant has released metal ions to the surrounding area. How does it do that? It does that when it's under corrosion attack. And then you're going to come and clean it with an acidic product? So these are little things that we have to start to pause and look and say, okay, let's go back to the root of the problem. What's a causative agent? What's the root of the problem? Then how do we treat it? Okay, do we treat it with chemicals? Do we treat it with antibiotics? How do we treat it? I'm not saying they're bad options, and what we use to treat the problem, is it always a solution, or is it going to have a side effect that's worse than the problem itself? Now, talk about peri-implantitis. How do you treat it? In my practice, when I see peri-implantitis, with what we now know, documented in the literature, one of the latest papers came out in November of 2017 by Dr. Diane Daubert out of University of Washington, because my U.S. colleagues always want to see a U.S. study. Well, now we have one and a couple more, because there have been studies on corrosion and their effect on peri-implant tissue for years. But they were coming from Brazil, they were coming from India, they were coming from other places, and supposedly they were not credible. University of Washington has released a study where there's a clear correlation between the release of metal ions and peri-implantitis. Now that we know that, what do we do when we see peri-implantitis in the practice? Do we try to solve it the same way we used to? Do we have a new way to do it? Or do we just tell the patient, look, whatever we have today to solve this problem can also can worsen the problem or not even solve the problem at all? So do we suggest that the implant be removed and replaced with a fresher titanium implant, or be removed and replaced with a ceramic implant? So now these are decisions now that we have to be able to make, and these are options we have to be able to competently present to our patients, because at the end of the day, they're going to be the ones having it in their body, and they're the ones who are going to have to decide which way they want to go. Do we treat it? We have always treated it and give it another year or two? Do we try something different that's probably not proven and we might get another 3 years? Or do we just remove it and start over? And maybe we can give them another 10, 15 years with the ceramic implants. Who knows? So how do I treat it? I just like I said, I present the facts and the options to the patient, and they make a decision.
So, specifically, I'm going to hold your feet to the fire because it's a big decision. The LANAP, the laser assisted new
Oh yeah.
attachment procedure, is a surgical therapy for the treatment of periodontitis. But these kids are young, and a $75,000 laser is a big deal. But if that's what they need, though, they want to buy it. They want to get a CBCT. It's 100 grand. But what do you think of the investment of a 75 to $135,000 millennial laser for the treatment of periodontitis?
So the lineup, it's a procedure that is, to tell you the truth, the few clinical cases I've seen presented here and there in the literature are amazing results. Now, can this be replicated over and over and over and over and over and and guarantee that what was recovered would last? I don't know, because I myself am not a user of LANAP. However, I'm one of those guilty ones where I was barely out of residency. I'd not even bought my first house, and I went and I bought a cone beam because I needed it to do these implant cases. I would call myself an implantologist. Well, hey, you have to have the tools. The LANAP, from the limited information I've seen, and I think there's no, that I'm aware of at least, longitudinal study over years showing, okay, a LANAP treated case can maintain its new attachment and new bone, whatever, over 5, 10, 15 years. I don't think we have that out there yet. So I'll tell the young kids, I said, listen, again, choose a mentor, a LANAP owner. Go and see what he or she is doing with his LANAP. Watch it for a little while before you jump in and buy this $120,000 device. Because, I don't know if the protocols, I've been to a couple LANAP lectures once or twice over the years, but I think the investment in the technology has to warrant a certain type of, not guarantee, but a certain type of stability to what you claim, or the solution that you're trying to bring to the patient,
Which cone beam did you go with?
I went with the Prexion from the Prexion from, at the time the company was called TerraRecon, but now they call it the Prexion 3D. I got my cone beam in 2007, when there were not even more than 20 cone beams in the country. I went with the Prexion, which at the time was really, and still is, one of the top machines in terms of imaging quality and low exposure. Yeah.
And who makes that?
Prexion.
But I mean, what country?
Oh, it's a Japanese machine.
A Japanese machine.
It's a Japanese machine.
Yeah, I thought that was so sad. During World War II, so many dentist refugees came to the United States from Germany, and they wouldn't recognize their license. And I always thought that was such a joke. I mean, Germany makes Mercedes-Benz and Porsche and Volvo, and this country makes the Chevy and the Ford and the Chrysler. And their lab techs. I mean, the greatest lab techs in the world are from Germany. I mean, they go to school for 5, 6, 7 years, and then they come over here and they look at, Americans always think they're number one in everything. I think the only thing Americans are number one in is self-esteem, military, insurance, banking, finance, music, movies. But that's what I'm loving about the internet is now it's really shrinking the world's 2 million dentists into the internet. I mean, gosh darn, I know a guy, a friend of mine here in town. He learned how to place implants. He got Apple TV, and he'd come home after work and he'd get his bowl of popcorn and a beer, and he would just go to YouTube and search dental implant surgery, and he'd watch YouTube videos. He said he watched YouTube videos an hour every night on YouTube on his big screen TV, and within a year he felt that he was an implantologist. I mean, and that is amazing. I mean, that he learned how to place implants on YouTube.
Yeah, but that's how the world has become small, and that's where all associations have to learn to adapt. We at the IOCI, we have just put together an educational platform with videos where people would not now go just to YouTube and watch videos, but they'll go to a platform where they'll watch the video, they'll get some questions about what they watch, they'll be tested, they'll be able to see where they stand in terms of understanding the concept, because the video is not just watching the video and going to try it Tomorrow morning, he's watching the video, taking a little test for it, getting some CE credits for it, and learning. But you're right, it's amazing. Today, you can even take a course. The guy's in Australia doing surgery, live surgery, and you're sitting in your apartment or your house in Arizona or DC, and you can learn like that. So the world, it's changed, and it brings its challenges, but it also brings a lot of benefits. Things are happening very, very fast. When I started ceramic implants in 2009, I did not realize, everybody called me crazy. Oh, you're going to cut out titanium? You're not going to make money? You're going to struggle? And that hasn't been the case. The people, our patients, our clients, we hate to use that word, but they are, our clients, our patients, are much more educated, okay? They might not have degrees, but they have access to information.
Absolutely.
And they can read, they can read, they can understand, and they'll come and challenge you.
Yeah.
Literally. Literally.
You know the best marketing I think you should do for the IAOCI? A lot of people make an online CE course on Dentaltown. We put up 411 courses, and they're coming up on 1 million views. The millennials, they like the fact that it's an hour as opposed to an all day, and a lot of people really build their brand. And after they see you for an hour, they know you, they know your name. You can talk about your course, everything about it. But I think it's a win-win situation. They get an hour of ADA, AGD approved education. You build your brand and talk about everything. But I think.
Let me work on that with Ryan. I'll definitely.
Yeah, because you already have all the content. You just
tons of it.
I know if you all the content. In fact, you know what's there's still not a. Yeah, I would do several. I mean, if you got all the content, put several up, build your brand, because the millennials are different. You know, I'm 55. I got 4 kids, 4 grandkids. I'm almost dead, and we grew up driving to bricks and mortar places and registering and all that stuff. But these millennials, man, they love to watch this stuff. I talk to them all the time. They say they watched every one of their online C courses on an iPad in their bed. They said
have you noticed how attendance has dropped in a lot of meetings in the last few?
All the meetings.
All the meetings. Yeah. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and they always say the same thing. They always say, you know, why is that? Why is that? Because she's laying in bed with an iPad leaned up against a pillow. And if her phone rings or she's got to go to the bathroom or wants to go make a sandwich, she just puts it on pause. I mean, I think some of the biggest brands in the world take someone like Carl Misch and Gordon Christian. I mean, they basically lectured every weekend at a dog and pony show every weekend for 40 years. Now there's guys that do an online CE course, and their views are in the hundreds of thousands right out of the gate. In fact, look at this. I started this podcast because of your town that you're next to, Washington, D.C. It was a year before the election, and people, there's 250,000 dentists on Dentaltown, and 60,000 downloaded the app, and they're saying, Howard, I have an hour commute to work, and I can't listen to this toxic crap, you know, Hillary and Benghazi and Russia and Putin and North Korea. And they said, by the time I get to work, I'm just depressed. It's too toxic. Will you make a podcast? Because they were listening to podcasts on cooking, quilting, raising kids, you know, hunting, everything. So we came out with that, and it's so amazing. Now there's now 60 dental podcasts being uploaded on Dentaltown. But look at some of his views. This guy started a podcast, How to Open a Dental Office. Look at that. He has 686,000 views. How long did it take Carl Misch and Gordon Christian to get 686,000 views? I mean, that takes decades.
Yeah.
Now you can put a podcast or an online CE course and have a brand name in 220 countries and
instantaneously.
This technology is amazing. What questions, I can't believe we already have 55 minutes. What questions was I not smart enough to ask?
What can I say? Maybe a little bit on the technical side of ceramic implants, if you want, meaning how they're made, the surface treatment. Do they also integrate little things like that? What else can we talk about?
So is it an osseo integration with the ceramic, just like the titanium? I mean, is it pretty much the same?
It's similar, but it's not the same, because if you look at all the titanium implants we have on the market now, they're coated. Okay, so if you look at most titanium implants that are HA coated or that are whatever, what's HA? HA is a ceramic. So I always poke at my titanium friends. I say, hey, are you placing HA coated implants or RBM or whatever, one of those coatings? You're placing a metal implant that's coated in a ceramic, right? So what you find is that the integration of a titanium implant versus a ceramic, a titanium coated implant versus a ceramic implant is different, because on the titanium implant we have an additive transformation of the surface, or an additive enhancement of the implant surface, whereas on ceramic implants is subtractive. And what does that mean? Again, on the titanium, you're coating, you're adding the surface, you're adding a layer, and that layer is an interface between the bone and the implant. So if you look at a histology, you'll see that you have the bone, the HA, and then the implant proper behind it. So sometimes those of us who have to remove implants, because we didn't talk about this, but you have a lot of patients now that are coming to offices asking for the titanium implants to be removed. And it's happening. Okay, they say, since I got this, I have headaches. Since I got this, I have that. I want them out. Okay, now the ceramic implants, rather, the way the surface is modified or enhanced is by subtraction, and the subtraction is done in two ways. Well, three ways. One is laser, which is there's only one manufacturer that does that. The second one is by sandblasting, which has fallen out of favor because they found that the sandblasting of zirconia can sometimes induce preliminary cracks and can make the implant weaker, although that argument is kind of going away now. But the most popular way of surface modification, surface enhancement for ceramic implants is acid etching. So everybody's using some form of acid etching. So what happens now when you place that implant in bone? When you place that implant in bone, the integration is more of a direct integration to the implant, because the implant has the little not perforations, but the roughness is on the implant itself, not in a coating. So the integration is into the implant. So the bone loves that material, loves that surface, loves the anatomy or the shape of that surface that's given by the roughening process, and grows into it. Whereas on coated implants, titanium coated implants, it grows into the coating. Okay, so that's why if you've had to remove an implant for whatever reason, fractured or whatever, a titanium implant, you always sometimes see that the coating stayed in the bone and the implant came out. Okay, so that's the difference there. But when we look at the success rate of ceramic implants, it's the same. It's the same. However, we're now finding amongst ceramic implant clinicians that the patient needs to be really well optimized before you do these implants on them. Optimized, I mean, you really got to make sure that the vitamin D is at a good level, the cholesterol, the vitamin K, the vitamin C, because this is a speculation at the moment. We think there's a little bit of a lag time in terms of the biological integration to take place compared to titanium coated implants. And if that lag time takes a little too long, the ceramic implant tends to fail. Whereas the titanium coated, I don't know if because of the time we've had working with it and improving it, it does a lot, but you just don't, that lag time can be longer and you can still have an implant that integrates. What happens 10 years or 5 years later, that's a different story now.
I had my blood work done. I'm not even kidding. I did that 23andMe, and I'm 4.3% Neanderthal. Here I thought I was all Irish, and I'm part caveman.
You need to watch your ancestral diet. You need to go back to your ancestral diet because. But that's another conversation.
when I told my boys I was part caveman, they said they always knew. If you had to buy the CBCT over again, I mean that's another really big decision. I mean that's a six-figure decision. Are you happy with your Prexion? Would you buy it again today?
Oh, that machine, yes, I'll buy it again today. They've had upgrades since. I mean, I've had mine 11 years now, and their upgrades are very nice. I've also seen some other some other CBCTs on the market that have I mean, they've made leaps and bounds. I mean, the last one I looked at was I ICOI meeting in Orlando, and they had one from Vatek. It was amazing. I mean, the rendering, the quality of the software was mind-blowing. The CBCT, I bought a CBCT before I bought a house, but it was a good investment, you know.
I'm so old. My first CAT scan was actually a cat. I would just throw the cat
Yeah.
on the patient's lap, and she would smell the patient and tell me which side. Are you using, a big part? You can't place an implant if you can't sell the case. And I've noticed that the people doing the most implants actually they're a better salesman. They perfect sales, and that Prexion has that software where you can make 3D animated movies for
Yeah.
patient case acceptance. Do you like their software? Are you using the animation to make movies? What are you doing to try to sell a case? Because you can't place it if you can't sell it.
That's true. And what I personally, I don't use animation. I used animation many years ago. There was a company out of Canada, I think they were called Console Pro, whatever it was, and they had a software that had showed animation. And maybe I wasn't patient enough, but I never really felt that I had an edge, or I was able to close cases a higher closure rate because I was able to show an animation. Now the animation has its pluses. Is that you do less drawings and you do less scribbling, and you can give them a good idea of what's happening. Now, I always believe that if you are honest, candid, and with your patient, most of the time they'll tune into that, being candid and honest, and probably go forward. Now,
Well, if you're candid and honest, what the hell are you living in Washington D.C. for? That's the biggest swamp
stuck in the
of.
beltway.
That's what.
I'm stuck in the beltway.
Oh my God, that's the biggest collection of lying thieves on earth.
But that's another thing I say. I tell, especially the young dentists, I say, I started out that way. I thought I could be the doctor for everybody. I could treat everybody. Not every patient is good for you. And it might sound a little esoterical here. They're not. You cannot treat. At the end of the day, we are healers. We heal people. And you go back to you're talking about ancestral diet, caveman and all that. Back in those days, healers would look at some people and say, I cannot help you. They said, your energy is not good. That's the kind of language they used to hold. Now today we have cone beams, we have scanners, we have whatever. But sometimes you just have to use your judgment and say, I'm not trained to handle this case. And put your ego out of the way. Just understand that not every patient you're going to be able to treat. Some you're going to have to let go. At the end of the day, all you want to be able to do is give your honest opinion, your expertise, your recommendations, and let them decide. I'm not a hard sell guy, push, just to sell,
Yeah, dentists hate sales. I mean, they hate it, and
Yeah.
they even tell you they hate it. And it really bothers me because I just think if you really passionately love someone, you're telling everyone about it. You know what I mean? It's like whenever you meet a person who's a vegan, I mean, they tell you within like 1 minute of meeting them.
Absolutely.
They can't talk to you for 60 seconds without letting you know that they're a vegan. And
Yeah.
when you look at people's how many diagnosed interproximal cavities are never filled, and then the dentist is telling me he hates cells. I'm like, well, you're not a very good dentist if you can't convince mom to remove her child's decay. I mean,
Yeah.
you say you don't like cells. Well, I don't think I like you as a dentist if you can't convince them to remove their decay. And
Or give them the opportunity to not want to do it versus just not saying anything about it. It's one of these.
and they're crazy too because I don't know what it's like in your area. I practice in Phoenix, but I mean, about 25% of the people in Phoenix think fluoride is a communist plot. It's toxic. It's put in by dentists to soften teeth so they fall apart and need crowns and root canals.
Yeah.
But but you don't kick them out of your office. You tell them to just not use toothpaste. And what's funny is they use this Uncle Tom's all natural
Yeah.
toothpaste, which the rule of thumb on natural is there should be less than 5 ingredients, and you should recognize all of them. And you'd have to be a biochemist to list all those ingredients on this all-natural toothpaste that's owned by one of the largest toothpaste companies in the world. But yeah, if you don't have a chemistry of the patient, or you think they don't trust you, or I'd say most of my referrals are because they're crazy. And Phoenix has a very high percentage of crazy people. They do. It's a transient town, like where I live. Didn't even exist 30 years ago. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
sprawling suburbs. So, when I grew up in Kansas, Wichita, pretty much everybody was born in Wichita, and so was their mom, their dad, and their cousin Eddie. And
Yeah.
it seemed to be a far more stable population. But you go to
Yeah.
Phoenix and LA and Houston, and
Washington too. Washington has a lot of transients, you know?
yeah. You know how you
Yeah.
can always tell when a politician is lying in Washington, D.C.?
How?
Their lips are moving. But hey, Sammy, seriously, thank you so much for accepting my invitation to come on here. Congratulations on the International Academy of Ceramic Implantology, which is www.iaoci.com. IAOCI.com, International Academy of Ceramic Implantology. I'd love to get an online course out of you for Dentaltown.
Yes.
I love that. I'm a firm believer. Watching this for 30 years, last night a couple of us dentists went out to dinner, and we were reminiscing. One of my buddies across the street has been there 30 years, passed away, Dr. David Rush, and we were reminiscing over the years. But I keep saying that the number one predictor if that dentist is going to be successful is if they take 100 hours of CE every year. If you just keep exposing yourself to enough information, you're going to be motivated, you're going to fall in love with something, you're going to, when dentists tell me that they're burned out and they hate dentistry, what do they all have in common? They're not listening to people like you. That no one's turning them on. No one's getting them excited. And then they're going in there and they're trading time for money, and they're burned out. And the key to burnout is listening to people like you. I could listen to you for 40 days and 40 nights. Thank you so much on waking up on a Saturday, and instead of sleeping in and playing golf, you came on the show to talk to my homies. I really, really appreciate it. And I can't wait to see you again.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for all the support. I'll be in touch with your back office, and we'll put this stuff together.
Well, I'm Howard at dentaltown.com, and then the guy in charge of online CE is Howard Goldstein. So he's Hogo, Hogo at dentaltown.com. Yeah. I'm Howard at dentaltown.com. He's Hogo, but email me, Ryan, whatever. I'd really love to get a online course out of you on ceramics, especially being the founder of the International Academy of Ceramic Implantology.
And what would you like? You like a lecture? You like
everybody does it different. Some people
a video.
Some people just have a video of them giving a lecture. Some people do load up slides onto the internet and then call in and do a voiceover. I'd say there's as many different. You should talk to Hogo. He's
I'll talk.
He's in he's outside of Philadelphia. He's in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania.
Oh, that's not far from me.
Yeah, he moved there because he thought that's where Jesus was born, and I keep telling him that I'm pretty sure it's the wrong Bethlehem. But anyway, thank you so much for coming on the show. I hope the rest of your day is a rocking hot day.
Same for you.
I am proud to announce that the IOCI now has a members portal. This portal is going to have content necessary for anyone who wants to learn more about ceramic implants to be able to have access to the information necessary. This portal is going to be an environment where you could come and have access to articles, videos, recorded webinars, and earn education credits by either viewing recorded webinars, white papers, scientific articles, surgical videos, anything and everything about ceramic implants. I invite you to sign up and take a look at all the wonderful material we have put together for you. And happy learning.